All right, then, since we successfully enable the authentication methods and everything, now we're gonna enable the option to work with the sign in with Google. Let's finish this, then we can move on to this one. So to work with the sign in with Google, to refer the Google documentation, click here, go to Docs, click it, and that will take you to the Firebase documentation. And here you can see the build. In the build menu, you can see the authentication option. Click the authentication. And in the left side, you can see iOS, Android, Flutter, and web. In this case, we're going to use the web, expand it, and we're going to use the email, sign in with email password, where it is, password authentication, and then we're going to use the Google authentication. So let's go to the Google authentication. So we have two different methods. Either you can use the Google sign in with pop-up, or you can use the, first we need to get the authentication provider, what authentication provider we're going to use. And then we need to get the auth information from our application, whether this authentication is enabled or not. Then if you scroll down, you can see we have sign in with pop-up authentication. And if you scroll down, you can use the sign in with a redirect option. We have two different authentication, one sign in with pop-up and another one is the redirect. So in this case, that depends on you. Both configuration is exactly the same, but only this method name is going to be different. It's up to you which is suitable for you. We can go with that way. In this case, I'm going to use the sign in with pop-up. All right, so let's configure this. Let's get back to the Visual Studio Code, close this, close everything except the login, close others. Close everything except the login. Let's keep it simple over here. And this is the sign in with Google. This is the place where we are happening. So this, on this place, I'm going to create an on-click event, and I'm going to say is login with Google. I'm going to create a method. So let me copy this and let's go to the top of it. And right after here, I'm going to create a method. So const login with Google, expand it. In this case, I'm just going to say console.log. I'm just say clicked. We need to make sure whether it is working fine or not. So let's get back here, go to your React app and right click and inspect the elements. And let's get back to the console. And over here, now if I, let me change this to right side. So if I click this is too big. Let me reduce the console size. Yeah, this is fine. Now, if I click this sign in with Google, you can see we get the message as clicked. That means our click event is working fine, so that it's triggering properly. So here now we need to get the authentication informations first. So to get the authentication information, we need to import two different methods, get auth and then the provider, what exact provider that you're gonna use. So right after here, I'm gonna import from Firebase /auth. I'm gonna get auth method, and then we need the sign in with pop-up, that method. As I said, we have two different methods, sign in with pop-up and sign in with redirect. Both are team for Google only. So in this case, I'm going to use the sign in with pop-up. Then we need to get the Google auth provider, because we're going to use that auth provider only. So right over here, first what we need to do, we need to get the authentication information from our app. So here const Firebase auth is equals get auth information from our app, which we configured in the Firebase configuration. So we need to import that one also. So import app from /config/Firebase config. So we get that app information and we are supplying it to the authentication information. So this will get the what are the providers which we enabled. All the information will be stored over here. Then we need to create a new instance for our Google provider. So const provider is equals new Google auth provider. Save the changes. So now we have the authentication and as well as the provider information. So since we successfully clicked this, so this function needs to wait until the user clicking that sign in the email and using and providing the password and everything. So we need to change this function as an asynchronous function. Async Okay, don't import that package, then otherwise if it will show the suggestions. So don't import this package. It's importing from Firebase util, so don't import it. Okay, just type async over here. So mostly you might even myself, I did this mistake, and then I will search for what is the mistake. At the after the very long time I figured it out. It's if I press the tab key, it's automatically importing that package, and it's changing the functionality. So don't import it. So over here now, what we need to do, we need to say await sign in with pop-up. So this function needs three different parameters. One is your authentication, then is your provider, and once it's done, it will gives you a promise. We need to handle that promise. So first we need to supply the Firebase auth, which we have. Then we need to supply the provider, which we created for the instance. Dot then this will provide it as a promise. That will gives the user credential. Okay. So once you got the user credential, we need to check whether there is a changes in the authentication or not. So Firebase auth dot on auth state change on authentication. Once the authenticated, there might be a change in the state. So we need to get that, and then we need to use that. Let's keep it as a cred. That's a credential. So we'll get that credential, then open it. So here, if we have that cred object, if we have the credential object, then what I need to do is I need to get that refresh token. So let me show you what exact object that we are getting. So if I console.log that cred information, so we console.logged it, and now if I click this, a pop-up is appeared. Let me bring a console inspect. What is that? Oh, here it is. Let me bring this. Now if I choose this account, that will allows the user to, and you can see we have that user credential completely over here. We are not supposed to show get the details directly from here. We need to validate this access token. We need to validate the provider. This is the provider data. If you want to use this data, you can use it. But what is the proper way is we need to get this access token. We need to send it to the backend, and we need to make sure whether the token is validated, because this is a JWT token, Java Web Token. We need to send it to our backend. We need to validate it. Then we need to using backend. We need to fetch this detail again, and we need to put it inside our the Redux store. Okay, that's the proper way to access your refresh token, because this token is validated only for 1 hour. Okay, so it will be automatically refreshed for every 1 hour. It will be automatically refreshed. All right, so let's delete this console log, delete it, and then I'm gonna make sure if this cred is there. That means if you get the credential, then cred dot get ID token, get the token, and then once you got the token, dot then send that token. Let's get that token, and let's console log that token for time being. Save the changes. And now if we sign in with Google, sign in, now you have your access token in your hand. So now what we need to do is we need to make sure this token is validated properly. So we need to send this token to the backend, then we need to validate the token informations and everything. So that's what we're gonna do next. Now the in the front end, that means in the client side, the authentication is successfully done. Once this is validated, we're gonna get same way, we're gonna authenticate, and we're gonna get this token, and we're gonna pass it to our backend. So what will be easier once we validated this token? So that's what we're gonna do next.